It's the middle of the night. You're asleep on the ground. Not in a tent, not in a sleeping bag, just on the earth. Maybe with a hide pulled over you if you were lucky enough to have one. The fire your group built a few hours ago has burned down to embers. It's still glowing, but barely. The light it casts has shrunk to almost nothing. And somewhere out in the darkness, about 40 meters away, something is moving. You can't see it, but you can hear it. A low sound, and not quite a growl, not quite a breath. The kind of sound that triggers something ancient and immediate in the base of your brain before your conscious mind has even had time to process what it is. Your eyes open. Your body goes rigid. Every single hair on your body stands up at once, because you know what that sound means. You've heard it before. You've heard stories about it your whole life, told around fires exactly like this one. And the thing making that sound is not small. It's a cave lion. And it is absolutely 100% thinking about eating you. Now here's the question, what do you do? What do ancient humans actually do in a world that is full, genuinely, comprehensively, terrifyingly full of things that want to kill them? Not in a metaphorical sense, not in the abstract sense that modern humans talk about risk, but in the literal sense that every single time you walk into the grass, every time you approach a water source, every time you make camp in an unfamiliar place, there is a non-trivial chance that something much larger, much faster, and much better armed than you is about to try to make you into a meal. This is the question we're exploring today. How did ancient humans survive predators? And the answer is so much more interesting, so much more sophisticated, and frankly, so much more badass than most people expect. Let's start by understanding exactly what ancient humans were up against, because I think most people dramatically underestimate the predator landscape of the ancient world. We're talking about a world that contained cave lions, which were not like the African lions you see in nature documentaries today. Cave lions were roughly 25% larger than modern lions. They were apex predators of Europe and Asia for hundreds of thousands of years, and they were very, very good at their job. We're talking about cave hyenas, again, larger than their modern counterparts, running in clans that could number in the dozens, capable of cracking bone with jaw pressure that would make a modern pit bull look like a toy. We're talking about saber-toothed cats, specifically Homotherium, and the famous Smilodon, with canine teeth up to 28 centimeters long, designed to puncture and tear rather than bite and hold. We're talking about cave bears that stood nearly 2 meters tall at the shoulder when rearing upright, animals that were primarily herbivorous but absolutely willing to kill a human who got too close to their den. We're talking about leopards, which are arguably the most efficient killers per unit of body weight of any big cat that habitually dragged their prey up into trees to prevent other predators from stealing it. We're talking about packs of large wolves, ancestral crocodiles along riverbanks, enormous eagles capable of taking primate-sized prey. There are fossil records of eagle talon marks on ancient hominin skull fragments, which is the kind of sentence that should stop you cold for a second. An eagle grabbed a hominin's head with its talons. That happened. The evidence is sitting in a museum right now. And into this landscape, this extraordinary heavily armed tooth and claw landscape, walked ancient humans, who were, by any objective measure of raw physical capability, not particularly impressive. No claws, no fangs, no armor. No real speed advantage. An average adult human in good condition can run at maybe 20 kilometers per hour sustainably. A lion can run at 80. A hyena can run at 60 and sustain it for kilometers. Even a bear, which looks lumbering and slow, can reach 50 kilometers per hour in a short sprint. If ancient humans had to survive by outrunning predators, we would not be here. So how did they do it? The first answer is fire. And I want to give fire its proper due here because it tends to get treated as just another ancient human technology when it is actually one of the most transformative survival tools in the history of life on Earth. No major land predator on the planet willingly approaches open flame. This is not a learned behavior in most species. It appears to be deeply instinctive, probably because fire is associated in the evolutionary history of most land animals with extreme danger and death. The scent of smoke triggers alarm responses. The sight of open flame causes avoidance behavior. Even large predators that have never encountered fire in their lives will typically back away from it. Ancient humans figured this out. We have evidence of controlled fire use going back at least 1 million years at a site called Wonderwork Cave in South Africa, and there are suggestive indicators of fire use going back even further, possibly to 1.5 or even 1.7 million years ago. For at least 1 million years, ancient humans have been using fire as a nightly shield against the darkness and everything in it. Think about what a ring of fire does for a sleeping group of ancient humans. It creates a perimeter of light in the darkness, which does two things simultaneously. It makes approaching predators visible before they can get close enough to strike, and it actively deters most predators from approaching at all. The combination of visibility and deterrence turns the night, which is when most large predators prefer to hunt, because darkness gives them a massive advantage over visually dependent prey like humans, into something survivable. But fire does more than just deter. Fire allows ancient humans to cook food, which increases the caloric density of their diet and fuels the large, metabolically expensive brains that are ultimately their most important survival tool. Fire hardens the tips of wooden spears, making them more effective weapons. Fire produces charcoal, which can be used to create signals and marks. Fire creates warmth that extends the range of habitable environments. Fire is not just a predator deterrent, it is a force multiplier for almost every aspect of ancient human survival strategy. The cave lion outside your camp? It smells the smoke from 50 meters away. It sees the glow. It stops. It waits. Eventually, it moves on. But fire isn't always available. You can't carry a bonfire with you on a hunt. You can't always get one started fast enough if you're caught in the open. So ancient humans needed other strategies too. The second major strategy is numbers. Group living. This is so fundamental that it's easy to overlook, but it bears examining carefully. Humans are profoundly social animals, and a significant part of that sociality is almost certainly driven by the predator pressure that ancient humans faced. Living in groups confers multiple survival advantages against predators that a lone individual simply cannot replicate. First, detection. A group of humans scanning an environment is dramatically better at detecting approaching predators than a single individual. More eyes, more ears, more noses. The probability that at least one person in a group of 20 detects a predator before it gets within striking range is vastly higher than the probability that a lone individual does. And detection is everything, because most predators rely on surprise. A predator that is detected before it can close the distance has lost most of its advantage. Second, deterrence. Most predators, even large ones, are risk-averse when it comes to hunting. A predator that gets seriously injured during a hunt may not be able to hunt effectively for days or weeks, which can mean starvation. So predators do a cost-benefit calculation. Is this prey worth the risk of injury? A single human, alone and unarmed, is probably worth the risk. A group of 20 humans carrying spears and making noise and standing their ground? Probably not. This is actually documented in modern wildlife research. Large predators consistently avoid or abandon hunts when prey animals are in groups and behave cohesively. A lion will take a lone wildebeest. It will think twice about taking one from the center of a herd of 100. Third, collective defense. When a predator does attack, a coordinated group response. Screaming, throwing objects, advancing as a unit rather than fleeing in all directions, can actively repel even large predators. We see this in other social animals. Baboon troops will mob leopards together, driving them away from a kill or preventing an attack. Musk oxen form defensive circles. African buffalo have been filmed repeatedly charging and driving off lions. Collective defense works. Ancient humans, with their intelligence and communication abilities, were almost certainly capable of much more sophisticated collective defense than any other social prey animal. They could plan it. They could assign roles. They could execute coordinated responses to specific threats. And that made the group not just safe in numbers, but strategically formidable in a way that genuinely changed the predator calculus. Let's talk about weapons, because this is where ancient humans went from prey to something much more complicated to classify. The oldest stone tools we've found date to around 3.3 million years ago. the Lomequian tools from Kenya, predating even our genus Homo. But the oldest convincing evidence of purpose-made hunting weapons, specifically wooden spears, comes from a site in Germany called Schöningen, where researchers found a collection of spruce and pine spears dating to approximately 300,000 years ago. These were not primitive sticks. They were carefully crafted, aerodynamically balanced throwing spears with the heaviest part positioned toward the front for maximum stability in flight. Exactly the same design principle used in modern athletic javelins. The craftspeople who made them understood physics. They understood that balance affects flight trajectory. They were thinking about the weapon not just as a stabbing tool, but as a projectile designed to travel accurately through space and deliver maximum force on impact, 300,000 years ago. But the story of ancient weapons goes even further. Researchers working at a site in South Africa called Kathupan found stone points. Hafted tips designed to be attached to a shaft and thrown, dating to around 500,000 years ago. Testing these points using a forensic technique that analyzes impact fracture patterns showed that they had been used as projectile weapons, not just handheld stabbing tools. 500,000 years ago, ancient humans were throwing tipped projectiles at their targets. What does a throwing weapon do to the predator-prey relationship between ancient humans and large carnivores? It is completely transformative. A thrown spear changes the effective engagement range. Suddenly, a human can inflict serious injury on an animal from 8, 10, 12 meters away. That's outside the range where the animal can retaliate. You can hurt it before it can touch you. For the first time in the evolutionary history of primate-predator interactions, the primate has reach. And here's the thing about weapons. They don't just change the outcome of individual encounters, they change animal behavior across generations. Predators are not stupid. They learn. They observe. They pass behavioral knowledge to their offspring, at least to some degree. And over thousands of years, large predators in areas with significant ancient human populations almost certainly learned, individually and culturally, that these particular prey animals were dangerous. That approaching a human group was not the same as approaching a herd of horses or a lone deer. That the cost-benefit calculation was different. There is fossil evidence that suggests exactly this pattern. In regions where ancient humans were present and active hunters, the behavior and distribution of large predators shows patterns consistent with avoidance of human-dominated areas. This is indirect evidence, and scientists debate its interpretation, but the pattern is there. Ancient humans changed the behavior of the predators around them, not just through individual encounters, but through their sustained presence as a dangerous, armed, socially organized species in the landscape. Now let's talk about something that often gets underestimated in these discussions: knowledge. Ancient humans survived predators not just because of fire, or numbers, or weapons, but because they knew their predators in extraordinary detail. They observed them. They tracked them. They learned their behaviors, their territories, their hunting patterns, their individual quirks, and they communicated that knowledge to each other across generations through storytelling and direct instruction. Think about what this kind of deep ecological knowledge actually looks like in practice. You know, from years of observation and accumulated cultural knowledge, that cave lions are most active in the 2 hours after dusk and the hour before dawn. You know that they prefer ambush sites near water sources because prey animals have to drink, and water's edge is where the sight lines are obscured by vegetation. You know that a lone lion is more likely to attempt an attack than a group of lions, because a lone lion hunting a human group has worse odds. You know that when a lion lowers its head and flattens its ears, it is about to charge, and that the right response is not to run, because you will never outrun it, but to hold your ground, make yourself big, make noise, and advance if you can. This is not guesswork. This is the kind of detailed behavioral knowledge that modern wildlife biologists spend entire careers developing. And ancient humans had it too, developed through millennia of close observation and passed down through generations of storytelling and direct experience. The ancient human who understood predator behavior had an enormous survival advantage over one who didn't, and this knowledge was a community asset, not just an individual one. If one person in your group had a close encounter with a leopard near the eastern ridge and survived to tell the story, every member of your group now knew that there was a leopard near the eastern ridge and had a detailed account of how it behaved. That is information that could save lives, and it was stored not in books or databases, but in the memories and stories of the community, transmitted by language around fires every night. The campfire, in this sense, was not just a heat source and a predator deterrent. It was a knowledge-sharing technology. The stories told around it were survival data, encoded in narrative form, being distributed and preserved. Let's look at some specific archaeological evidence that shows us ancient humans not just surviving predators, but actively competing with them. At a site in Spain called Atapuerca, in a chamber called the Cima de los Huesos, the Pit of Bones, researchers found a remarkable assemblage of ancient human remains alongside the bones of cave bears and other large predators. The site appears to have been a den used by cave bears, and the human remains there suggest that ancient humans and cave bears were competing for exactly this kind of sheltered living space. Cave bears were enormous. The largest individuals likely weighed over 500 kilograms, comparable to a large modern grizzly bear. They were dangerous enough that their remains are found with healed injuries consistent with combat wounds. And yet, ancient humans were not only living in their territory, but apparently contesting the same den sites. This is not avoidance behavior. This is competitive behavior. Ancient humans at Atapuerca were not running from cave bears. They were living in the same landscape, using the same resources, and apparently holding their own in that competition. The fossil record at Atapuerca spans hundreds of thousands of years and represents one of the most extraordinary windows into ancient human life in Europe, and what it shows is not a species cowering from predators, but a species actively occupying the landscape alongside them. Similarly, at multiple Neanderthal sites across Europe, researchers have found the remains of cave lions and cave bears with cut marks on them. The same kind of cut marks you find when someone is deliberately removing skin from bone for the purpose of using the hide. Neanderthals were killing cave lions and cave bears and skinning them, not just scavenging them after they died naturally, deliberately hunting or dispatching them and processing the bodies for usable materials. If you are skinning a cave lion, you are not prey. You are an apex predator competitor. There's a concept in ecology called the landscape of fear, and it's highly relevant here. The landscape of fear refers to the way that prey animals modify their behavior and spatial distribution based on the perceived risk of predation across different areas. Prey animals don't just respond to actual predator attacks. They respond to the risk of predator attacks, modifying where they go, when they move, how much time they spend in different areas based on their assessment of predator activity. What researchers have found when studying landscapes where humans are present is that humans generate an extraordinary landscape of fear for other species. Modern studies in various wilderness areas have found that large predators, including wolves and mountain lions, show strong avoidance of areas with high human activity, even when those humans are not actively threatening them. The mere presence and scent of humans, associated as it is with danger through generations of experience, causes behavioral modification in large predators. This landscape of fear effect almost certainly operated in the ancient world too. As ancient humans became more numerous, more widely distributed, and more effectively armed over hundreds of thousands of years, they progressively changed the landscape of fear for the predators around them. Areas with significant ancient human presence became areas that large predators learned to approach with caution or avoid altogether. This is a gradual process. It's not like one day predators started avoiding humans. It was thousands and tens of thousands of years of interactions, individual experiences, behavioral learning, and the slow accumulation of predator caution translating, over generations, into population-level behavioral changes. But the direction of that change is clear. As ancient humans got better at surviving predators, predators increasingly got worse at successfully hunting humans. The ancient human track record with predators wasn't just about surviving individual encounters, it was about gradually, cumulatively, making themselves into prey that wasn't worth the effort. Let's not forget something important here, because the story of ancient humans and predators is not just a story of defense. Ancient humans were hunters, serious, skilled, highly effective hunters, and the same capabilities that made them dangerous to large prey animals coordination, planning, weapons, ecological knowledge, also made them effective against large predators when the situation called for it. There is growing archaeological and ecological evidence that ancient humans actively hunted some of the large predators they coexisted with, not just for survival in the immediate sense, but for furs, for resources, and possibly for reasons of safety. Removing a dangerous individual from the area. We've already established that Neanderthals were skinning cave lions. But there's more. At multiple sites, ancient human remains are found in layers that also contain the remains of large predators, in contexts suggesting that the humans were the last ones to handle those remains, that they arrived after the predator was already dead, or that they killed the predator rather than the reverse. There's also the extraordinary case of the cave bear cult hypothesis, a long-debated but genuinely interesting idea based on the careful arrangement of cave bear skulls and bones found at multiple Neanderthal sites, suggesting that Neanderthals had some kind of ritualized relationship with cave bears that went beyond simple competition or avoidance. Whether or not the cult interpretation is accurate, the mere fact that Neanderthals were carefully handling and arranging the remains of one of the largest and most dangerous animals in their environment tells you something profound about how they related to the predators around them. It wasn't simple fear, it was something much more complex. Let's come back to the night we started in. You're awake now. The fire has burned low. The cave lion is 40 meters out and moving. What do? Here's what you actually do, drawing on everything ancient humans knew and had. You don't panic. Panic is what gets you killed. You wake the person next to you, quietly, with a touch. And they wake the next person. Within 30 seconds, everyone in your group is awake, silent, alert, and oriented toward the threat. No one runs. Running triggers a chase response in big cats, and you will lose that race every single time. Instead, you pick up your spear, the one you made last month from a straight branch of ash wood, with a hardened point and a weight distribution you've tested over dozens of throws. And you face the darkness. Someone adds fuel to the fire. The flames rise. The light expands. The cave lion, 40 meters out, freezes. It can see you now. All of you. Standing upright, spears leveled, facing it. Not fleeing, not panicking, just there. Organized. Prepared. This is the moment. This is the moment where the ancient landscape of fear does its work, because this lion has been here before, in one sense or another. It has, through its own experience, or through whatever predators learn from each other, encountered groups of humans before, and it knows, not in the way that you and I know things consciously, but in the deep behavioral way that animals know things, that this isn't worth it, that the risk is too high, that there is easier prey somewhere else. It turns. It disappears back into the darkness. The group exhales. Someone feeds the fire until it's fully burning again. Someone laughs. Because humor after terror is as old as terror itself, and ancient humans almost certainly found relief in laughter after a close call, just as we do. Someone tells a story about the last time a cave lion came close to the camp. The knowledge is refreshed, redistributed, updated with tonight's details. You go back to sleep, but not everyone. 2 people stay awake, watching,